But I do think it's important to get away, because if you don't, you start shouldering things. And I think for me and my personality is I like to solve things. I like to get things done. I like to check the box. I like to move on to the next thing. And sometimes you start grinding in times where if you just back up and take a deep breath, sometimes it takes care of itself. Or sometimes you get wisdom as, hey, this is going to take a little time, but let's be okay with it. Because if you don't step back, then you just grind and grind and grind and grind. And, it's the Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 7, sharpen the saw, with the 2 guys that are chopping wood all day. And the guy that takes a 15-minute break every hour ends up chopping more trees. And at the end of the day, the guy's like, can't believe you chopped more trees. You took a rest every 45 minutes. He goes, I wasn't resting. He goes, I was sharpening my saw. Way.
Welcome to the Brave Way podcast. I'm Brian Bonn, your host. With me, as always, Pastor Jeff. Pastor Jeff, thanks for being here.
Let's have some fun today. What are we going to talk about?
Well, I was actually thinking, as we're in this holiday season, a lot of people get to rest and rejuvenation. And I was curious some of the methods that you might go through when it comes to rest and rejuvenation, and some of the things that are really important for you to make sure that you're in tip-top shape throughout the year. So with the holiday spirit, some people, they just want to veg. They're like, I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to lay low and I'm not going to do anything. And other people, they want to read, and other people want to take care of their bodies differently, so on and so forth. And I thought, I wonder what Pastor Jeff does. Let's ask Pastor Jeff this question this week on our podcast. So take me through a little bit. We just went through Thanksgiving not too long ago.
Mm-hmm.
So what were some of the things you did to take care of yourself, rest and rejuvenate during that time?
I'm a work in progress. So I think resting for me is not something that naturally comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
I think, when we got married, my wife would tell you that we get married and next morning I'm springing out of bed, like, let's go, let's go, let's go. My wife is one that she wakes up slow. She gets a cup of coffee. She kind of gets her wheels turning, then she's ready to talk and all that stuff. And when I wake up, the moment I wake up, I'm up, like, let's go. And so rest for me has never been something that I, until like really the last decade, started giving much time and thought to. Like, even when we started the church, then people would ask me, like, what do you like to do? Like, how do you refresh? And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, this is my refreshment. I like to work. That's what I like to do. And there is something about calling that when you're doing what you feel called to do and you enjoy it, there is refreshment in doing what you're called to do. But I think what you're asking is, okay, how do you keep your batteries fresh? And over time, and talking to people that have, gone the distance in ministry and done different things, asking them, okay, what do you do and how do you do this? I've had to learn to really take time away because it's not my natural thing. Like working around the clock would be my natural thing. It'd be more of a bent for me to be thinking about church, be working on the church, be working with people, calling people, talking about things, solving problems. To disengage from that is very important for me. And it's been a discipline I've had to learn over time. And it used to be I would take, every single Monday off, and that was the only day I would take off. And after I preach on Sundays, I'm always depleted on Mondays. So Mondays, I'm kind of cranky. I'm kind of not myself. And my wife was always like, why do you give us the worst day of your week? Like, pick a different day for us.
Yeah.
So now I've gotten into more of a rhythm where I know certain days it's better for me if I rest, if I refresh. And by doing that, what I'm saying is I'm not thinking about church. I'm not taking phone calls. I'm not engaging with, I know there's a lot that needs to get done, but if I'll take the time away, then when I am present, I think I'm way, way more effective in doing what I do. So that's one way,
It's really
to
good.
refresh.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And it's important for people to hear, like, it's not continuing to work that will recharge your batteries. It's actually stepping away from it, getting away from it.
And not everybody has my problems.
For sure.
Some people are wired differently. Some people would play all day, every day, and that's their thing. That's not my bent. My bent is, if I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it really, really well and work hard at it. So to pull away from me is very, very difficult for me. But it's something I've had to discipline myself in doing. And I think then when you do pull away, it's what do you do?
Yes.
And how do you spend your time? What is refreshing? There's a lot of guys, man, I love to mountain bike. It's so great to be out in nature. I love to camp. I love to do, and I'm thinking, I moved out, like, what do I like to do? I don't like to do any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But what I do enjoy, I enjoy going to sporting events. I enjoy watching sporting events. I enjoy reading stuff I enjoy reading things sometimes that have absolutely nothing to do with church, but just maybe personal growth or just kind of dreaming or thinking.
Yeah.
I enjoy just getting away and taking walks. I do have bike kind of stuff that I like to do, or, weights or those kind of things that are refreshing to me. But if I'm disengaged in doing something, I love spending time with my wife. The best times that we have, especially now that our kids are older, we don't usually go out at night and have this big date night. But, while our kids are in school or doing stuff, I mean, we'll go have lunch dates and we'll
Yeah.
just sit across and talk for a couple hours and just listen to each other, talk, refresh that way. So
Yeah.
I think there's ways to connect relationally. I think there's ways to connect with just inside of you. And then obviously the spiritual disciplines of, prayer and the word.
Mhm.
But sometimes even in ministry, and I tell our staff this all the time, it's easy to, okay, I'm praying for my sermon on Sunday. I'm prepping for my sermon on Sunday. I'm reading through the text I'm going to preach. I'm praying about what I'm going to preach versus I'm reading to see what God wants to say to me. I'm praying
Yeah.
for God, what do you want to say to me about me and what do I need to change? And so I think those times are part of refreshment too, where you're not doing ministry, you're being ministered to so that you can pour out fresh in what you do.
It's great. And I think those things are important, that it's almost hobbies along the way. You mentioned sports there for a second and said you like going to games. And when you're at those games, it's probably hard to think about anything else other than what's happening,
It's
right?
fun for me to be in a crowd of 75,000 people and nobody knows me.
Yeah.
And I'm just sitting there and just taking it in, and it's relaxing to me. That's a
Yeah.
very relaxing environment for me. Getting away with my family is very relaxing to me, and just spending time with our family.
Yep.
So there's different things that rejuvenate my batteries. And the older I get, I think health, and I'm certainly not the picture of it right now, but I think, my wife and I have been talking about that. We've just kind of changed the way in which we do things and
Mhm.
how we're working out and how we eat and what we do. Not so much like, like you do 30 years ago, because I'm going to go to the beach or I'm going to don't care about that, but just longevity and how do you sustain your health and what does it look like and what do you do and how do you learn? And I think for me, and I've said it publicly, I mean, I'm a lifelong learner, so I like to learn. So for me, if I'm being stimulated in my brain
Yeah.
and I'm learning something that I didn't know, I'm learning a skill I didn't know that I want to learn, or I'm learning about how to do something or how to think about something differently, that's rejuvenating and refreshing to me.
And that's really an important thing to understand. What is the thing that rejuvenates you? For you, I find it super interesting that doing more learning is the thing, right? You're in the Word, and the Word is constantly teaching you something new. And now you're going somewhere else and learning even more. That it's almost like your brain doesn't turn off.
It doesn't. I have a hard time with that. And, for me, like I was out with a group of pastors. We were out at Torrey Pines, in the last month, and I was golfing out there, which for most guys like you that are a golfer,
Yeah,
like it would be your dream, right? I mean, you got
no
the
doubt.
ocean ahead. I'm like, I could care less that I'm golfing. It's just not my thing.
Hurts my
And I
feelings.
know, but it's not fun for me. And
Mhm.
so, I'm not like, man, if you gave me a golf club membership at the best country club, I'm like, okay, I'll probably go once because I'm supposed to. That doesn't rejuvenate me. But when I'm talking to guys in other disciplines for how they do what they do, and I'm learning how they do what they do, or personally, what do they do, and I'm starting to say, man, I can start doing this, or I could change my schedule this way, I could do that. I mean, that's always refreshing. I like learning. I just do.
Yeah, that is an incredible thing. I think lifelong learners are a rare breed, actually. I think it actually is hard to find somebody that wants to learn in multiple disciplines and take it to the furthest extent that they can.
Yeah, I study real estate all the time. I
Mm,
mean, I know the market. I know where I'm looking. I know what's going because it's fun for me because I
yeah.
like looking at houses. I like looking at homes. I mean, and I like studying like what are people saying and what are interest rates and why are they the way they are and what's the best way to buy a home. And even if I'm not doing anything
Yep.
with it at the current moment, which I'm not, I like studying that stuff. It's fun for me.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned date days with your wife.
Hmm.
How important is it?
Huge.
I mean, when we're talking about making sure that you're still dating your
Hmm.
spouse, talk a little bit about things that you guys do, things that are
Hmm.
really important for you to keep your marriage afresh, just like you need to keep yourself
Yeah.
afresh.
Well, everybody's different. Everybody's wife's different. Everybody's got their own sense of personality or whatever. So for each guy, you got to get to know your wife. And so, over the years, I know my wife. I know what my wife enjoys, and her love language is time. So time for my wife is she gets me and me alone with no phone and no interruption. And it's just the two of us. We could be at a restaurant. We could be going on a walk. We could be sitting at home talking. If it's just the two of us, that is super refreshing to my wife. Now, for me, I'd rather take my wife to Monday Night Football and sit with my wife, not talk to her, just be there and be relational and have fun.
Yeah.
That's not nearly as engaging to her. So
Yep.
when we spend time together, I know that's totally refreshing for my wife, which even in the moment, I have fun doing that. But the 2 or 3 days later, my wife's still fired up that we just got to hang out and talk. And when we dated, we did it all the time. I mean, we did it naturally because I was trying to pursue her and trick her into thinking that I was better than I was. And so we spent a lot of time together. But once we got married, I was thinking, okay, we're already married. We already did that. Now let's move on. Let's get stuff done. But nothing changed for her. I mean, her love language was still time. I didn't even know that was a love language. And so I think for guys, it's learning our wives, and chances are your wife's love language is different than yours. And so like learning to appreciate what she likes and how she likes to do things and what she enjoys. So my wife's time. And so if we spend time together, or if she knows I'm thinking about her, or I'm calling her, or hey, I was thinking about you today, and hey, we should go take a trip, or we should get away for a day, or super energizing for my wife. So am I perfect at this? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. But am I better at this than I was when we got married? Yes. Am I better than I was last year? Yes. And so as we prioritize those things, that's good. And what most people don't realize, and I say this publicly, but they don't realize, is that I would not be able to do what I do if I wasn't married to my wife.
Sure.
Like there's nobody that encourages me more than my wife. There's nobody that prays for me more than my wife. There's nobody that loves me more than my wife. There's nobody that unconditionally cares for me more than my wife. So to do what I do and to go through what I go through, if I didn't have Kim, I can't do what I do. And so it's actually an investment for me to spend time with my wife because it encourages her, and I get all the benefit of encouraging her, honestly. So
you said something during that. I just got to make sure I heard you clearly. Did you say no phones while you're with your wife on a date?
I didn't know that was a thing either, but apparently I pick up my phone a lot.
Okay.
And so, I remember one time where she's like, yeah, that didn't count. Like, what didn't count? She's like, well, you're on your phone. I was just checking scores, and I just had to text that guy back. And she's like, yeah, but it's interruptive. It doesn't make me feel like you were with me. It made me feel like you were with me and everybody else. And so now when we go out, I either leave it in the car or give it to her, and she puts it in her purse, and that's what we do.
So do you feel like you gain clarity when you come back from those moments, whether it's learning something different, turning it off, spending time with your wife? When you come back to work on that Monday or whatever day it is that you come back, do you feel like you are refreshed and you are ready to get after it again? Or is it a slow move for you? How do you
Yeah, that's a
come
really
back?
good question. I think, first of all, when I get away is refreshing to me too. So, I mean, even getting out of the Denver area, getting away from home, seeing things from a different perspective, just taking a deep breath. I come back and I'm super refreshed. And I think the hard thing is sometimes it's when I'm away, I get my best ideas. And what's a good thing that I've learned is not to come back on that first Monday. I'm back. Hey, we're going to change everything. Here's what we're doing. No, I'm not doing that. But let's get back and let's see how this is going. Let's play it out.
Yeah.
So I think I've got more mature with that. But yeah, getting away is good. Now, if I've been away, and I don't do this as much anymore. My kids were little. I went away for like 3 weeks at a time in the summer. Then when I got back, it was really hard to step back in the pulpit after 3 weeks of not being out. It's like almost a month or so. I haven't preached, and it's like, this is really hard to. But usually I'm not gone that long to do that, so I don't feel that. I do feel refreshed. Even getting away with another group of people that are just like, I get energized by people that are go-getters. I just do. And so when I'm around people that are in their own field, their own discipline, their own study, their own stuff that they're doing, they're really good at what they do, and I get to learn from them. That's energizing.
That's awesome. My wife's the exact same way as you. If she can step out of the zip code, the area code that we're in, there is a total relief for her. And I'm like, I don't care if we're in our
Well,
house.
here's
I
what's
don't
funny
care.
now. I mean, because I'm not super well known or anything like that, but even over, Thanksgiving, we were up in the mountains, and we were actually in Beaver Creek at the time, and Santa and Mrs. Claus were rolling around as my kids were ice skating, and I was like, "Hey, can we get a picture?" And Mrs. Claus is like, "Pastor Jeff, where have you been? You don't call, you don't write." I'm like, "What?" And I'm like, "How do you know me?" She's like, "I used to go to Brave, blah, blah, blah. And I'm in
That's so
South Dakota, watch you online every week." And so what's been funny for me is even in Colorado, when we get away, I'm not really away. We were down in Florida for our vacation 3 years ago, and there's a family staying in the exact same hotel to go to Brave. And it's sometimes difficult just to, quote, get away,
Yep.
where you're not going to run into anybody that you know.
Yep. We did that going to Hawaii.
Mhm.
Went to Hawaii. We stepped on the plane, and there were like 15 people we knew on the plane. And we were like, this defeated the purpose completely. We were
Exactly.
trying to get away from those people. But I think God has a funny sense of humor when it comes to those things
He
as
does.
well, of even when you want to
But I
fully
do
turn
think
it.
it's important to get away, because
Yeah.
if you don't, you start shouldering things.
Hmm.
And I think for me and my personality is I like to solve things. I like to get things done. I like to check the box. I like to move on to the next thing. And sometimes you start grinding in times where if you just back up and take a deep breath, sometimes it takes care of itself. Or sometimes you get wisdom as, hey, this is going to take a little time, but let's be okay with it. Because if you don't step back, then you just grind and grind and grind and grind. And, it's the Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Number 7, sharpen the saw, with the two guys that are chopping wood all day. And the guy that
Hmm.
takes a 15-minute break every hour ends up chopping more trees. And at the end of the day, the guy's like, can't believe you chopped more trees. You took a rest every 45 minutes. I wasn't resting. He goes, I was sharpening my saw.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, I think you got to have time to sharpen your saw. So like, even, even going to get my THM, and when I went on to get my doctorate, and people are like, why are you getting a doctorate? Why do you want to do that? And I'm like, you just want to get a doctorate? I'm like, because I like to learn
Hmm.
and I want to grow. And if I can learn things about how to be a better preacher, a better communicator, a better pastor, I want to do that. And even now it's like, I'm always putting together books I need to read, things I need to see.
Yeah. As a leader of a church, it's important that you model that as well, I would suppose.
And in a way, like, the bigger we get, the more I realize I can do one thing and I can do it really well. I like to preach and I like to cast vision. Every other discipline we have, somebody else on our staff is better than me.
Hmm.
And so how do I ask the right questions? How do we get the right things? I mean, how do I grow as a leader to empower people, as opposed to saying, well, this is what I want done. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm always trying to grow and develop. And I think God brings crises so that you can get away and rest and learn how to do those
Yeah.
things.
How do you make sure that your team's doing that as well? So you oversee a lot of people, right?
I do and I don't. I
Well, yeah.
mean, I do and I don't. But I think, for me, I've always erred on the side of make sure your family's taken care of.
Mhm.
I mean, I tell people all the time, for our guys, I'm like, if you're failing with your wives, if you're failing with your husbands, but you're serving it brave, you're failing.
Mhm.
So make sure family's priority, make sure your kids are priority. That's huge to me. Make sure you're getting rest. And when we have people that work hard, and we're blessed right now, like on our staff, like I said today in our staff meeting, we just have great people. Right? We just have great people. And so when you have people that are working hard, it's easier to tell people, hey, you need to take some time and refresh. I can tell you're exhausted. We haven't always had that staff.
Mhm.
Sometimes we've had staff that they don't do anything. So it's kind of hard to tell them, hey, you should take some more time to do nothing. I mean,
Yeah.
but we don't have that anymore. And so, I'm trying my best to look around and see people. And I don't get to see every single person on our staff. And we have teams that are overseeing teams, but hopefully people that work here sense that I'm serious about wives or husbands, if you're a gal, and families being a priority and making sure you're getting rest. Because the reality is we live in a day and age where people are like, we work until we're exhausted.
Mhm.
Now we got vacation time. We spend the first week of our vacation recuperating from all the stuff we've done, and the next weekend of our vacation dreading the fact we have to go back to work, and then we're right back. We're no good. So taking free days during your life to rejuvenate, do something that's refreshing, that you enjoy doing, that's fun for you,
Mhm.
that you're learning, I think it's a big deal.
Yeah. And we really are in a busy season for church.
Mhm.
Right, as we get out of Thanksgiving and now we're preparing for one of the busiest days for a church,
Mhm.
and being Christmas Eve for us. I feel like there's a final ramp up to get to 2025, and making sure that people are their best version before we get there, and then as we step into the Christmas holiday, I think is so incredibly important, so that you really are, if a guest is coming on campus, they really are getting the true brave experience when they step on here, and the only way I know that that could happen is by making sure that you have a healthy culture.
Yep. Yeah, and we spend a lot of time. Obviously, I mean, we joke. I mean, here in Inglewood, we do 2 and 4 o'clock this year. If we did services on any other Tuesday at 2 and 4 o'clock, we probably wouldn't be jammed.
Mm,
But that's when people come out on Christmas Eve, and so
yeah,
providing that opportunity for people to have a worship experience and hear the Lord Jesus Christ speak directly to them is huge. And so we're looking forward to that.
yeah, it's gonna be great. Anything else on rest and rejuvenation that you wanna make sure people hear?
Yeah, I think you got to pick something you enjoy. So for a long time, and I don't know if you know this or not, but I started working on my pilot's license, and I'm
Didn't know
going
that.
very slowly on
Hmm.
it. I'm in no hurry to get it done because I don't plan on being a commercial pilot or anything or whatever. But it's been fun for me because when I'm up in the air and I'm with my instructor and I'm flying a plane, I'm not thinking about anything else. It's the one thing I can do
Yep.
where I'm not thinking about church. Like I don't think about it at all. I'm thinking about making 360-degree turns. I'm thinking about seeing Pikes Peak in the distance. I'm making sure we're not plummeting. I'm thinking of all these things,
Yeah.
and it's been a fun thing for me because I'm like, okay, how many people really know how to take off a plane and land it? I can do that now with a really small plane, maybe. And but it's been fun for me just to learn, even though I have no desire to be like a gifted pilot. But it's just a new life skill, and I'm up with somebody that obviously knows what they're doing if I get into trouble.
Yeah.
But it's finding things that you enjoy. So some
Yeah.
guys like playing basketball, and some guys like you like golfing, and some guys like doing a swim every morning. Some guys like doing a workout. But what can you do where you can truly disengage and you're not thinking about the things that you're constantly thinking about? So,
Yeah. Up in the air. I mean, what made you even try it?
um, I think during 2020, all the lines at DIA, and I'm like, I don't ever want to fly commercial again. No, it was just one of those things. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, that would take a skill. You'd have to know a lot of different stuff, and you'd have to learn things that you don't know. And so I didn't know anything about it, so I just started doing it, and I'm still in the process. I'm no expert at all. I don't have my license yet or anything like that, and I'm not in any hurry to get it done. But for me to get up in the air and to do those things is just fun. It's refreshing because I'm not thinking about here. I don't have time to do that
Yep.
because I'm trying to keep myself alive.
Well, I'm glad you're still alive. That's for sure. I think I'm just thankful as we do this podcast that we continue to learn a little bit more about you, and whether that's being a great husband, a great pastor, a learner for life. I think we're really giving people an insight into who you are and all the different ways that God has used you to uh, just be the man that you are. So thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate all the compliments. I was going to let you continue to share those things because I don't hear that all the time. But
Well, yeah, I just didn't. I don't think I ever thought the podcast was going to head into a direction where really it's an inside look into who Pastor Jeff is. And I think getting to know the man that's not just there on Sundays, but is there as a dad, as a brother, as a son, as a so you fill in the blanks as
mhm.
we go. I think is really refreshing, and it really gives somebody a look into who you are and all that you've done with your life up to this point, including not crashing a plane up to this point.
I hope I never crash a plane.
But anyway, I am thankful, and I'm thankful that you shared this information today. I do think that in such a busy world that we're in right now, I think it leaves people wondering, what am I doing wrong? And oftentimes the wrong that they feel is the hurry, busy, nonstop. When am I going to get a break?
Well,
How do
I
I
don't
get
think
to
if
my
you
next
take the
break?
time to stop and think, you really know the direction you're going. And then you're just at the mercy of the urgent that you just, I got to, I got to, I
Yep.
got to, I got to, I got to, I got. And you don't got to,
Yeah.
you get to. And how do you want to set the sail for where the Lord wants to take you? And where's he asking you to set the sail? And are you really going to let the Holy Spirit breathe life into that and take you? Or are you going to drive where you want to go? And I spent a number of my years driving where I wanted to go and was miserable. And finally, when I was done being my own motorboat, I'm like, okay, God, I'll be a sailboat, and I'll put my sail up. I'll let you direct where you want me to go. And um, then life became more enjoyable.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I thank you for today. I love talking about rest and rejuvenation. This has been great insight from you,
It
and
makes me think I have a lot more to work on. I mean, honestly, for rest and rejuvenation, because it's
I,
hard for me. My wife would tell you, and people that know me well, it's hard for me to turn off my brain.
yeah.
I go to bed thinking things. I wake up thinking things. It's hard for me to. That's why reading calms it down.
Hmm.
Doing something that takes all my brain power calms it down.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. No, I see so many different people with so many different ways that they
mhm.
rejuvenate. For you, a thinker, I could not imagine trying to lay in bed at night knowing that it's just happening all the time. But the fact that you've figured out how to combat that with trying new things and doing it differently than other than just thinking about the Bible or thinking about your next sermon or how to grow closer to the Lord, adding those other things in there to combat it is a very interesting way to take care of yourself, and it seems to be working because when I see you come back after a period of time, you really do look refreshed and you really do look like you're ready to start back again and have clarity in the things that we're planning on doing in the future. And that's one way that we can do it. For me, I'm a player. Like I want to play basketball. I want to play football. I want to play golf, like you
And
said.
it's funny because when we go on vacation, it's my wife. My wife is the most fun person that I know. It's why I married her. She wants to go do everything.
Yeah.
And for me on vacation, I would much rather just sit and do absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And that's refreshing to me. And so we always joke, like even on our honeymoon, I remember when we were in Hawaii and she's like, let's go to the beach. I'm like, why don't you go to the beach? I'm going to sit in a hotel room. I'm going to watch a movie because I never get to sit down and do nothing. And I remember I was like on the 19th floor and she went down and I'm waving at her and she's waving at me and she's out on the beach and I'm watching the movie. I'm like, yeah, I feel like a loser, but this is refreshing to me.
Yeah.
And laying in the sun and baking in the sand, that's not it for me. So at the end of the day, it's just knowing yourself and knowing what rejuvenates you and doing those things.
Yeah. Funny enough, when we just had our Brave Christmas party,
Yep.
and we were at main event for it, and my wife looked at me and she's like, this is heaven for you, isn't it? And I'm like, this is everything I've ever hoped for. Give me an arcade, give me a bowling alley, give me any of those places and watch me thrive. Because I just enjoy just doing silly things and fun things. And it was just so much fun. And that's the way I come back and I'm fully rejuvenated, ready to go because I got to do something that is outside of what I normally do. And so I again,
it's why when I got that invitation to play golf a couple months ago, I'm like, hey, I don't want it. Call Brian. He'll go.
Man.
Was that good?
And I did. It was
And
so
were
good.
you refreshed?
I was refreshed.
Yeah.
Yeah. So day on the golf course, it's kind of like you. You said like, I just want to be left alone and do it. 4 hours on a golf course with your phone off. You are having just the time of your life.
I'm too dang frustrated if I do that. Too competitive.
I always say if I was a good golfer, I probably wouldn't play the.
Okay, fair enough.
So yeah. But anyway, we better wrap this thing up.
All right.
Thank you so much for everything you do here at Brave. And thank you for tuning in to the Brave Way podcast. Can't wait to see you guys soon. And until we do, know this, that you are loved.